We're live now.
Okay. The meeting will now come to order. Welcome to January 25th, 2021 City of Asheville Board of Adjustments meeting. My name is Pratik Bhakta, and I'm the Vice Chair of the board. The Board of Adjustments is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by the North Carolina General Statutes and the city's Unified Development Ordinance. We are authorized to hear requests for variances from the city's Unified Development Ordinance, appeals from final determinations made by city officials charged with enforcement of the city's Unified Development Ordinance, requests for reasonable accommodations, and other requests, as may be provided in the city's ordinances. All committee members and staff are participating virtually. We appreciate your patience as we work through committee meetings a bit differently. We're streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the Board of Adjustment page. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone. Dial 855-925-2801, and when prompted, enter the code 9255. Again, I'll restate this for anyone listening. The public may participate by dialing 855-925-2801, and when prompted, enter code 9255. The automated system will ask you to press *3 to be heard. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. I will now go through and introduce all the committee members who are participating virtually. Please make sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. Please make sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. When you have a question or would like to speak or unmute your microphone, please remember to mute your phone after you're done speaking. Committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Carter Webb.
Hi. Hello.
Suzanne Gotzi. Bill Newman.
Here.
And Paul Wazinski.
Hi.
And I'm Pratik Bhakta again. Also with us today is our Assistant City Attorney, Eric Edgerton, and alternate board member, David Angelis, who will be in attendance as a backup in case any of our currently seated board members have any technical troubles. I'd also ask that anyone speaking today, including staff, to state their names and titles before speaking. We'll now begin our agenda items. To help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud and do a vocal roll call for each vote. Additionally, I'll ask that committee members raise their hand to speak, and I will call upon them. Or if you need to interrupt, for a question that's being presented, just go ahead and unmute and ask a question. I recognize and thank Philip Harden, immediate past chair of the board, whose term expired at the end of 2020. Agenda item 1 would be the adoption of the minutes from September 2020 meeting.
Yeah, this is Paul Wilsinski. I move to adopt.
Okay, I need a second.
Did we see the minutes? Sorry, Chair, this is Carter Webb. Did we see the minutes? I'm not sure I saw the minutes. Maybe I overlooked it.
They came out back on Friday, I think it was.
It was sent with the agenda and the 2 items. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay, any discussion? Any changes, comments?
I'm happy to vote for them once the vote comes up, but I just haven't seen them. Ricky, where are they? Just so I can just look at them quickly. Sorry, I don't mean to hold things up, but I never saw the minutes.
I'll double check, send them, but I will say they're 89 pages long. So
Yeah,
The minutes are 89 pages long?
It is the transcript.
yeah, the transcript.
Okay.
So without any further discussions, I'm going to ask for a vote. Mr. Webb?
Not having read them,
You can abstain.
sure, I'm abstaining. I just haven't seen them, so I'm happy to approve them. I just haven't seen them.
Okay. Ms. Godsey?
Yes.
Mr. Wazinski?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
And Jake Bakta, yes. Minutes have passed. We'll now move on to general introduction of the quasi-judicial decisions. We now begin the evidentiary hearings for the cases listed on the agenda. In hearing the cases, the board conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means it is like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this board must make its decisions. These rules are different from other types of land use decisions like rezoning cases, which are legislative in nature. The board's decisions are constrained by the standards in the city's ordinance and in the facts presented at the hearing. The board hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards set forth in state law and the city's ordinance. The board must base its decision upon competent material and substantial evidence presented at the hearing. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preferences or opinions. Participation is limited. The meeting is open to the public. Everyone is welcome to watch. Parties have rights to participate fully. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify as to facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standards. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts, not opinions. For certain topics, this board needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts on traffic safety. For variance requests, a 4/5 vote of the board is required to grant a variance. For all other hearings and matters, including the adoption of the minutes, the decision will be made by a simple majority vote of the board. Witnesses must swear to affirm their testimony. At this time, we'll administer the oath for individuals who intend to provide witness testimony. Okay. For all those wanting to testify, if you would just unmute. Go ahead, Ricky.
I'm just saying, you ready to swear in? I'm just raising my hand.
Okay. For those who are going to affirm, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay. The first agenda item is the petitioner Barry Bialik, agent for owner Amy Jones and Sean O'Connell, is requesting a variance to the development standard found in section 7-8-4F3, lot size standards of the Unified Development Ordinance.
Mr. Chair, just real quick, I just want to weigh in. This is Carter Webb. I don't think there's a conflict of interest, but Mr. Bialik and I are friends and were once neighbors. And I just want full disclosure, and I already sent that to you and to Ricky, but just wanted to put it on the record. And in case anybody thinks I should recuse myself, I'm happy to do it, but I don't see any conflict.
And Eric, just to let you know, he indicated it was not familial, financial business. It's just a friendship. And I don't believe that meets a conflict of interest test.
I'll give you the exact same advice. That's the standard of the statute, those three items that Ricky mentioned. So it likely is not a conflict.
All right, board, I just want to let y'all know, me and Beth are working right now. The YouTube live stream is going out on the audio, but the screen is frozen. Basically, about 1 or 2 seconds into the start of the meeting, it froze. If we don't mind, just give us and I'm sorry for the applicants, can we have 1 or 2 minutes? Me and Beth are trying to double check. I don't know if we need to start the stream, or she's talking to IT. So if we can just have 1 minute to kind of figure that out. If that's okay with the chair. All right. And
Yeah,
Barry, I know you represent that. Okay.
We'll give you a 5-minute recess.
All right. Just everybody stay on. I just want to make sure that we do have some people that are interested. I've had some call-ins, and I just don't want the public to miss out without the best effort we can give. Just update. IT is working right now. They've rejoined on YouTube. They're trying to get the OBS software to broadcast. So they're working on it right now. Just to give an update real quick. All right. Thank you, board members, for your patience. I appreciate the applicant's patience as well. We are back live on YouTube streaming. So now the public can follow along with the material that's on your screen. So thank you, anybody listening in and following us. We appreciate your patience. So The first case that you have before you today is a lot area variance. Let's see, Mr. Pratik's dropped off. Let me stop just a second. Okay, there you are back. I don't believe I have seen one of these applications come through. It's been a little while since you've seen a lot area variance. Jason, will you go to the next screen for me? Okay, so Mr. Bialik is on a petition on behalf of the owners, Ms. Jones and Mr. O'Connell, regarding a reduction in the required lot area for an RS8 zoning district. That's a 4,000 square foot minimum lot size. There is a survey in the packet provided by the applicant. The total lot area currently is 7,885.96 square foot. And so the end result would be, depending on how it was divided, the applicant could do, as an example, a 4,000 square foot lot and then a resultant 3,885.96 square foot lot, which is approximately 2.85% reduction. Jason, next screen, please. So here's the zoning map, just the way orientation. Hendersonville Road is just to the edge of the screen to the left, is just off the highway business, that kind of pinkish color. That is parcels abutting and fronting Hendersonville Road. And this is kind of the north end of Shiloh. I-40 is probably about a quarter mile to the north, near the Hendersonville Road, I-40 interchange to your northwest. Next screen, please. And then here's a contour map. So it's the second parcel, and it kind of slopes generally from east to west down toward Reed Street. Next slide, please, Jason. And so here's a street view. This is Wilson Street with the existing house. And next slide, please, Jason. And this is the Reed Street side of the property. So as you can see, it's kind of a little bit of an uphill climb, fairly gentle slope for Asheville, I'd say. I think the average was about 20% average natural slope for the property. It is not steep slope zone anything. It's below the 2220 contour, but it's a fairly gradual slope is what you can see here. And then next slide, please, Jason. And so this is the exhibit provided by the applicant, the survey I mentioned, the 7,885.96 square foot. And you can see the house is kind of positioned very almost exclusively to the east side of the lot, fairly close. Next slide, please, Jason. And these are just some reference plats. I'll let Mr. Bialik go through it. If you want to stop right there, Jason, on the slides. But as far as variances go, the UDO is kind of very specific in variance guidance for the board. And it says that the Board of Adjustment is limited to a not more, so no more than a 10% reduction in lot area in size. So for a 4,000 square foot lot, that means a maximum 400 square feet that the board, if they found the reasons and evidence to reduce it. So a 3,600, I guess, would be the reciprocal number. 3,600 square feet would be the smallest lot that y'all could allow. And also, just to let you know, if you've read the UDO or been involved with a lot, there is a flexible development standards. And we had some authority for like very quantitative, and we use it a lot with setbacks. But it mentions lot area, but it talks about a historic pattern of development. In this area, I'd say that most of the lots are more than 4,000 square feet. There's a lot of 5, 7, 8,000 square foot lots. So I couldn't find anything that was 3,500 or 3,900 that a staff level could look at that standard. So absent those facts and concern that it was arbitrary, we've directed the applicant to the Board of Adjustment. So that's why the case is before you today. That is there any questions of the board of me, or we can let Mr. Bialik move forward with his portion of the case request?
Okay, I guess let's move to start now, Ricky.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you can start over. Would you like Jason to back up a couple slides for you, or do you want to work through your example?
Yeah, let's go back to I guess where it shows the survey. Well, actually, I'll reference back a few times. We'll start with the survey because I'll start with the property itself.
And yes, I'm sorry, Barry, I still don't have that document that you were wanting to send over for the MSD.
Oh, okay. Well, I can re-email. I emailed it to Ricky. I'll reference that later. But what I emailed in was just the MSD map. Ricky, did you get that? Ricky.
I did. Let me check, see what, I think it's hung up in my sent folder. Let me,
okay.
My network's slow here, so I'm sorry. Let me try again.
I'll hold on to referencing that later. So what this is reflecting right here, this is the survey of the property that we prepared. So the client reached out to me. So, in my capacity, I'm the general contractor for compact cottages and dirt and sticks. So we build a lot of small footprint homes in town and a lot of ADUs. I'm also the chair of the Affordable Housing Committee for the city. So I get reached out a lot when people are trying to, do small infill developments or for build ADUs. So this client had reached out to me about dividing their property or possibly, building an ADU. Obviously, the ADU triggers whole different financing difficulties. So the easiest way was to look to kind of divide it. So when we surveyed the property and looked at it, we saw that we were, it was at 8,000, it was under 8,000 square feet. It was 886 square feet. And so we saw we were going to be a little bit shy. And I've used the flex development standard, which allows for 10% variations through staff level review. So I went that approach first. And then, it was advised that probably the Board of Adjustments would be the better way because staff didn't feel like it was within their authority to be able to do that. So, so that's why we're here with this. So we're asking, obviously it's about 114 square foot variance, which is, I think, it's like 2.8%. So some of the things that are, unique about this property is, that to create the two 4,000 square foot lot sizes that would be conforming, we don't have the square footage exactly. So what we went ahead and looked at is some of the surrounding plats. So what I want to do, if you could bring up it's exhibit 3. So exhibit 3 was the plat that created, this neighborhood. And what we're talking about here is on this plat, it is lot 2 up in the kind of the top towards the top of the screen. So it's lot 2 that we're talking about. And one of the things to note that on this plat, the right-of-ways, meaning the streets created at that time, which were Brookshire and Reed Street, are not specifically denoted with their right-of-way widths. So it doesn't say if it's 30 feet, if it's 35 feet, or 40 feet. It's not particularly noted on this. So that was the plat that created the neighborhood. The next plat we're going to look at is Exhibit 2. So Exhibit 2 is what divided several of the lots. Let's see, on School Street, I think is now Academy Street. So it rejiggered the property lines of several of the lots between Reed Street, Wilson, and Brookshire, just south of Academy Street. So you can see on this plat, which was, looking for the date of this, but it was 1946. So again, on this one, Wilson Street is denoted with a 30-foot right-of-way, but Reed Street is not denoted. So on this survey, the lot we're discussing is lot 3. So lot 3 in this subdivision is the only one that was created that's actually less than 8,000 square feet. All of the others were just slightly over, but this was, so I guess it got the short straw. And, we couldn't have predicted what modern zoning would adjust to and how it would play in. But this lot was created, and it was at that point 7,886 square feet. So of that, it would have been the only one that would not have been dividable this way. I want to make reference to, we're going to look at exhibit. I'm not sure the lot, but one of those lots, I think we're going to be talking briefly about lot 8 or 6 on this plat. But if we go over to exhibit 5, so exhibit 5 created something very similar to what we're trying to do. It basically used the frontage, in this case from Wilson Street and Brookshire Street, to divide the lot in half. Their lot, they didn't have that short straw from that first survey, so they actually were over 8,000 square feet. It looks like this was the total lot must have been 8,600 square feet. So they were able to divide off the existing house and then create a parcel of 4,000 square feet. So, and that is, I think it's just kitty corner across the street, across Wilson Street from our plat. So even though it wasn't, it doesn't go below 4,000 square feet, the precedence is there of dividing these lots into smaller lots, meeting current zoning standards. Next exhibit I want to reference is exhibit 4. So exhibit 4, just for reference, it's the lots D and E on that plat are directly across the street from the lot that we're discussing right now. So that lot was wider, so it had enough frontage, so it was divided into lots that are about, looks like 5,500 and 5,400 square feet. So again, even though it's not truly below 4,000 square feet lots that have been created, there's a historical pattern of creating smaller lots out of the existing lots from the plat. One of the things to note on this plat is it references where earlier I said that the Reed Street plat, the Reed Street on the other plats wasn't specifically denoted to the width of it. On this plat, there's a note on the plat that says that Reed Street is considered a 30-foot right-of-way according to a note, and then that note was references back to I think a city staffer. The note says right-of-way information provided by David Keat from the City of Asheville Transportation and Engineering Department. So that so this plat was based on the assumption that Reed Street was a 30-foot right-of-way. When you measure on the GIS and when you measure on other standards, it shows Reed Street over there being wider, more like 35 feet. So it is possible that if the right-of-way was truly just 30 feet, some of that may have been given over, some of that could have been given over to the lot in question, which would then put it over the 4,000 square foot minimum. So, I guess my point is we're so close, and there's a couple of questions in play that make it unique to this plat that it's out of this owner's control of what they could do. That we're based on 1920s and 1946's plat. We've got a pattern of dividing these lots into smaller lots, and all of the other lots that were created in the plat that created this particular lot were over the 8,000 square foot just by a hair. So let's see. I think that's the plat history I just wanted to walk through. Let's see, what else do I want to say about that? That there was that, what I said is that if you could actually pull back, I'll just demonstrate that quick. If you pull back, I think it was one of your zoning, your exhibit A, your zoning map, see how Reed Street widens out in front of this lot and how it narrows down to be 30 feet towards the south end, and then Wilson Street looks a consistent 30 feet, and then Reed Street in front of this lot, according to the GIS, measures about 38 feet. So there's a little bit of a plat inconsistency that if we were applying just a 30-foot right-of-way standard to it, even if that difference were split between the lots on either side of the street, that would put it, we're so close that would give enough extra to put it over the edge, to give this one over 4,000 square feet. So that's why, I thought it was worth bringing to this committee that we're so close. I think I did some math that I put in my example that the right of way appears to be at its widest close to 38 feet. If 30 foot is accurate and then applied to this lot, even with giving only 4 foot to this lot, which is half of the excess width to this lot and the other half of the excess lot to the lot across the street, that would create an additional 242 square feet, which would means we wouldn't be here. That's some of the history of the lot. So, as far as the application, the other thing I'm just going to address, is that obviously the lot owner didn't create this hardship. This is based on plats recorded in 1946 and 1909. Before applying for the zoning variance, I asked the owner to reach out to the lots on both sides of it, because basically what we needed was 1 linear foot from either one of those lots and we would have been over. So we reached out to the lot above it and the lot below it, asking if they'd be willing to deed over 1 foot of their property, which would then, given this lot, made it conforming. Both of those property owners have their properties are encumbered by deeds of trust. So it's not necessarily easy or feasible to go through that process to sell just a foot of your lot. So it wasn't a practical solution for either of those to be able to sell off a foot of their lot. It would have mean they would have had to refinance the mortgage or go through the partial release of deed process, which is not easy. The other point I just want to make is that I do feel that the variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose and intent of the UDO, and it's although it is slightly smaller, I think it's consistent with the subdivision actions that are occurring in the neighborhood, that there is this pattern of dividing into smaller lots that are allowed by new zoning. The provisions of the UDO do allow for the flexible development standard up to 10%. Again, this case, staff determined that the historical pattern wasn't something they had the ability to make that call on themselves. The other thing I wanted to mention on this particular lot, did you, Jason, were you able to bring up that MSD map I sent in?
Yes, I did receive it. Just bear with me one moment. I couldn't add it without interrupting everything. So
sure. But while he's working on it, the point I want to make is that, as is common in the city of Asheville, that a lot of easements, easements for sewer, easements for water weren't necessarily recorded back until I think just like 10 or 12 years ago. So this particular property, and which is common in many places I build in the area, the sewer lines are hooked up to neighbor sewer lines. So in this particular case on the MSD map, which, when we pull up, it doesn't actually have a registered tap. It's currently, there we go. So there's 604 Wilson, and the property right above it is I think it's 600 Wilson is the one, just above it. And currently 604 Wilson ties into the same sewer tap for 600 Wilson, and then it goes down to the street. So by allowing this variance that allow once we subdivide and as part of the construction process we go through, we'll be able to remedy that by putting in 2 separate sewer taps, one for 604 Wilson and one for a new resultant lot if allowed. So even though while it's not a city's responsibility to do anything of correcting, it is something that's a big issue in our city with our utilities infrastructure, and it is more common than you can ever imagine how many sewer lines I cross that don't have easements. So this will be a way that will allow something to be corrected. I think that's, about the about the case of what I'd like to make. The plan would be for this owner to build a small footprint home that would be in character with the neighborhood and in character with what we build at Compact Cottages. Does anyone have? I don't know how the process works. If you ask me for questions or.
Yeah, this is Paul Wilczynski. I have a question.
Sure.
On the application that you filled out, there are 4 questions that you answered that relate to standards that we need to be cognizant of.
Sure.
And the first one speaks to what the unnecessary hardship is. And I don't know if you have the answer, if you have the form in front of you, but the answer that you gave to that first question speaks to the facts. It speaks to the lot sizes, and if you don't get the variance, the parcel can't be divided. But it doesn't really speak to what the unnecessary hardship is. And I was wondering if you could briefly speak to that.
I would, in this case, I would say obviously the hardship is if it couldn't be created, but I'd say the hardship is that it was created by a plat process that from the early 1900s and 1940s that doesn't fully, the math might not fully add up on, and that in this case, when the plat was created, all of the other lots in the 10 plats were over 8,000 square feet, and there's no way that whoever was creating that plat at that time could have predicted what current zoning standards are. So the current zoning standards that were created create a hardship on this plat that only this lot in that plat that was created because they didn't know at that time to add that extra 200 square feet on it. But I'd say that's the big hardship that comes from this is that the plat back then was created at a time that couldn't have predicted what current zoning standards would be, and there's questions in the math and the lining up of the right-of-way as to whether the lot, if that right-of-way were true 30 feet, would be completely conforming to new current zoning standards.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the petitioner?
I have a couple of questions. Some of them are for staff, so can I ask those as well?
Sure.
Absolutely.
So Ricky, I had a question. Did the RS8 zoning, is this RS8? This is RS8. Yes. RS8 zoning, did it not just reduce its square footage requirements for minimum lot sizes?
I'd say caveat, it did in recent history. It was about, my memory is about 4 years ago. I think it was 2016. It went from 5,000 square feet to 4,000 in area and 50-foot width to 40-foot width. So
although the right-of-way has, in this question of right-of-way has infringed on the property, the zoning has changed in the future, more recently to make this even remotely feasible. So that's something that I think is worth pointing out. So Ricky, the accessory dwelling units in the ordinance, what would this property be able to put an accessory dwelling unit on it?
the property as it currently is situated would be allowed an ADU. And if a variance were granted to create a lot, then obviously each lot that's conforming would be allowed a house and an ADU as well. So,
right, but if the variance wasn't granted, they could still place an ADU on the property to have an additional dwelling unit.
correct. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I believe in this case it would be, it's based on, obviously the ADU square footage allowed is based on the square footage of the main house. So, I don't have that right in front of me, but if an example, if it's a 800 square foot house, the maximum that would be allowed is a 400 square foot ADU. You know, the maximum ADU allowed is 800 square feet total, regardless of the size of the primary, but it's only applied if the primary is smaller than 1,600 square feet, then the 50% only applies to whatever the square footage of the existing house is. You know, ADUs, yes, certainly are a tool in the city. It's, you know, it's under, you know, as a chair of the Affordable Housing Committee, we find, you know, ADUs, even though it seems like it's the lowest hanging fruit, it's the hardest, it's not an easy thing to get financed. It's because if you can't get a loan to build an ADU easily if there's another home on it. So with this creates, you know, having separate parcels, whether it's through dividing them like this or using the Planned Community Act, you know, allows you to then get separate PIN numbers and parcels, which then you could put separate deeds of trust on, which make it easier to construct, you know, ADU size homes.
So I would just point out, though, that we can't really use financial difficulties in granting a variance. So I'm sure that's, let me see if that was all of my, I guess I'm just having, I wanted to ask Ricky one other question. Has the city granted these planning director lot variances basically in the past?
Yeah, I probably didn't clarify when I said that earlier. It's a flexible development, but I do almost all the flexible development for the city right now, and we had done some lot area reductions back prior to the change from 5 to 4, because there are quite a few lots that were platted years ago that were 47 feet wide, 46 foot wide, or 4,800 square feet. But since the reduction to the 40 and 4,000 in this example, I have not granted any, and we've not really had much a way of petition for those in that case, because typically what we run across is either lots that are 25 foot wide, like strips. But no, to say no, I have not granted any since the lot area, lot width reductions were adopted by council. I have not done any.
Okay. All right. I think that's it for right now. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I will point out, obviously this is RS8. So yeah, we have that restriction in in RM8, you know, this option, we wouldn't have to be here for that, because that would allow, whether it was divided or not this way, it could be divided through a Planned Community Act. You're allowed to build 2 structures on that property and then divide them off separately. You know, it's RS8 just doesn't allow that. The only, you know, other tool is the cottage development.
Okay, any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, we'll close that part and open it up for public comments.
Okay, it looks like we do have 2 callers on the line. I'll bring the first one now.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Could you state your name?
Yeah, my name is Ben Martin, and I'm the property owner for 616 and 612 Reed Street, which would be to the west of the subject property there.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to react to a couple of the things that were said, primarily that the sewer connection for 604, that can be connected without subdividing the lot. 604 is, from as far as I can tell, is a non-conforming lot as it sits now, based on setbacks off of Wilson Street. So you'd kind of be continuing on that. And when the lots across the street were subdivided, they were subdivided under that 5,000 square foot UDO. So just as far as a precedence for the area, the area has been under that 5,000 for quite some time. And recently, since it went to the 4,000, I'm having a hard time understanding where we're coming from with with this precedent. But that was just a couple of things. I have, Exhibit 4 that was presented. That's my survey there. So anyways, that's basically my facts on it. I don't see the hardship of not being able to subdivide, because you can't get a loan for an accessory dwelling unit. And I believe that's about it. If anybody has questions, I can answer them.
Mr. Buck, that caller will need to be sworn in. You can just ask him to affirm that everything he did testify to is the truth.
Okay. Do you swear that, do you affirm that everything you've said, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do affirm.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the caller? No? Okay. Next caller.
Hi, my name is Natalie Stroud. I live at 608 Wilson Street, so I live right next door to 604.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about parking.
I'm sorry, one moment. Do you swear
Sure.
that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So I wanted to talk about parking. Parking is already at a premium on our street. When you take a look at the images that you had earlier, you will see it's virtually a one-way narrow street with little off-street parking. I'm wondering where the residents of that dwelling will park. And then I also wanted to talk about the historical significance of these houses. There are 5 houses on this street. All are the same in a similar bungalow style. They're all 100 years old. So putting a dwelling in the back of this property decreases the historical significance of the neighborhood. Also, you can see that spot that's in this photo that we're looking at right now. If you see all of that water in the road on Reed Street, that's actually damage from the sewer line. Houses were constructed up the road, 613 Reed Street. When they were building those 3 houses, they damaged the sewer line, and that water is constantly there. It's potentially raw sewage. The city was out to look at that in July of this year. I don't know what the results of that were, but I just wanted to bring that up because the infrastructure of these houses it's very old. So it's something that the city will have to take into consideration. Also, the builder brought up the zoning map that indicated that Reed Street widens toward Academy. The reason why that widens is because there's a concrete drain put in place because Academy and Reed Street floods when there's a heavy rain. So I just wanted to say, lot restrictions are put into place with a minimum size for a reason, and those restrictions should be followed and mean something. Our neighborhood cannot support an additional dwelling in the backyard of this house. Y'all have any questions?
I would just add that, whatever gets done, on that lot, the parking would be off, be brought up off Reed Street. So parking would be brought up, and then we would, part of, that is the beauty of it. I appreciate, old historic homes, and but new construction when it comes in it gets to fix also some of the issues, especially the old infrastructure issues that you discussed. It has the opportunity with things open to correct sewer line errors, which we have to do all the time, I think from the times I've spent on Reed Street, I think that improving it and with new systems and new driveways and paving would help predict help situations, not hurt them.
Any other questions for the caller? Okay. Do we have any more comments?
No, that's it.
I'm sorry. Do we have any more people in the public comments?
I don't see anybody that has entered the queue. There are 2 more callers on the line. If the 2 callers that are remaining wish to speak on this item, please hit *3 now. Okay, the other 2 must be for the next one, so I think we are good to go.
Okay, we're gonna now close the public comments and open up for the board. Board, you guys have comments?
This is Carter Webb, Mr. Chair. It looks like we're struggling with the first one. The unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. From what I'm hearing, is that kind of where we're going from the other board members?
Yeah, hi, this is Paul. Let me say that particular question is one that I often ask. If it isn't absolutely 100% crystal clear to me what the unnecessary hardship is, I think the petitioner made a good argument to answering my question. So I happen to be satisfied with
it. Barry, if you could address it just a little bit more, what is the main hardship? Because here, what I'm looking at is that what we're trying to decide is what's the hardship on preventing you from splitting the lot in half, right? I mean, that's essentially what we're looking at. Am I missing the issue, Eric? And that what we're kind of looking at here?
Technically, it's you're looking at the existing lot and whether there's a hardship that would limit the use of the existing lot, and so that's the question that you all are faced with here in determining whether there's a hardship.
But if there's a hardship on the existing lot, it's over the amount, right? Are we talking about the 8,000? Or are we talking about splitting it 4 and 4?
In theory, you're looking at whether or not there is a physical hardship that impairs the property owner's ability to make reasonable use of their lot. In this case, it's a bit different because there's an existing house there, so they are currently making use of the existing lot. But I'll let Mr. Bialik characterize the hardship as he sees fit.
Okay. Yeah, and I see the hardship really is just, more the fact of what's created from the, what is the situation, what is the hardship that's created from the lot? And, it's just that when the plats were created, that they couldn't have predicted what modern zoning or what demand would be in the city. So the 10 lots that were created, 9 of the 10 lots were created over 8,000 square feet. This was the only lot that was under 8,000 square feet. It was just by a hair. So when that plat was created, it kind of created a hardship for this lot that wasn't known until modern zoning times, but that it's all of those other lots are over the 8,000 square feet and only like a hair over it. So we're 114 square foot. It's very small amount short. And so the hardship, obviously, the hardship comes in is that it can't, as it is, it can have an ADU on it, a small footprint ADU. It can't have another house, which, another regular size house. And what we build are small footprint homes. But with that, in our city, with our affordable housing crisis, that we're having to be really creative for how to make new homes work and make things affordable for folks. And that's not the hardship from this, but it's just the hardship that this lot got the short straw, I guess, from the 10 that were created. And the short straw was not that short, but it was just short enough. Then it couldn't have predicted the current standards. So,
each of the other 9 lots would have been able to do this because they're over the 8,000. They would be able to, whether you're splitting it in 2 different lots or building 2 different structures on it, they would be able to do that. Is that I'm just trying to make it.
Yeah. Any one of those other lots can do exactly what we're proposing. This is the only lot that would need this variance to not have that same hardship.
Okay.
I'm
just having an issue trying to wrap my head around that no reasonable use can be made of the property when you could build an ADU on it instead of a single-family residential structure. That's where that's where I question this. And to say our hardship is that the property's too small, well, yeah. No kidding. I mean, that's saying my hardship is the fact that you have regulations. It's a challenging. I don't feel like you're addressing a specific hardship. Me personally, so I'm having a hard time with the application.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I mean, I guess it's because the amount is so close, and I guess the hardship is all the remedies that would. The remedies that the lot owner could take in are not feasible in this because of the other, because of the neighbors not being able to, they would have to refinance their property to be able to deed over that 1 foot if that was something they wanted to do.
Yeah. It sure would be nice if the flexible development standard could have been applied to this, considering it is so incredibly small. So that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah, that's what, and it does, it allows. Oh, I mean, the way I read the UDO, it allows it allows up to a 10%. It's like UDO allows you to do this as a board. It allows up to a 10% reduction, and we're asking for a 2.8. So I look at that. The ask is minimal. And it allows so much more by doing it. It allows another home for someone.
So let me interrupt you real quick and ask Mr. Edgerton. So the way that reads is that, yes, we do have the authority to grant a variance up to 10%, but we still have to, or this property still has to meet the 4 standards of a variance. So it's not just you can go up to 10% just because. You have to actually have a hardship, and that has to be demonstrated by the application.
That's correct. The underlying 4 factors for a variance have to be met, and then the cap then would apply if you find that if they have met those standards, then that 10% cap would come into play.
Thank you.
Can you explain that? Because the way I read the application, it seems like the hardship portion is really just the stating of what couldn't happen if this. I guess I'm confused. I'm trying to just understand the hardship. How would one explain what that is other than just explaining this is what you can't do with this because of that? I'm just having a hard time with that hardship one being the one getting stuck up on, because that seems to be what the purpose of asking for the variance in the process is. It's that a lot has a hardship.
Yeah, and so the ordinance states as much, and that's consistent with essentially every ordinance, and it's consistent with the statutes that apply to variances, that you have to demonstrate a hardship. But there's a whole additional body of case law that's spun off of that largely says that just a financial hardship alone is not going to be sufficient.
Sure.
So have something like a financial hardship that's triggered by virtue of like a rock outcropping that prohibits you from building a sidewalk, I think is one of the more we had. That clearly gets you there. The only additional note that I'll say in putting a caveat on that advice is that the applicable case law does provide that if it is a very minor variance request, that the percentage or deviance from the ordinance is very minor, then it can be more acceptable to find that the financial impact of a given hardship pushes you over the edge to finding that a hardship exists. So that case law is out there, but that's the default. A financial hardship alone is typically not sufficient, but if it's coupled with some other sort of physical hardship, then you can get there.
Did they define exactly what? Sorry to jump in. Did they define exactly what the percentage was in that case law? Do you know?
And so I'm referring to it's a case called Turek v. Town of Surf City, and it was a very small. It was a 7.2 inch incursion into a setback. I'm not sure what the setback was, but whatever it is, 7.2 inches would be an exceedingly small percentage.
And I think our UDO has been pretty, the 10% is something that's been pretty consistent language in the flexible developments and in, asking for variance up to that. It seems like that 10% has been a pretty, it's a pretty consistent standard that I've seen, applied. I've only had to use it once before for a foundation into a setback or something. But yeah, it's a hard, addressing the hardship issue, I think it's really that, we are trying, the bigger picture is we have a housing crisis in town, and we're trying to come up with solutions, and when people are willing to be part of that solution, and then if there's tools to help them be part of that, then we should have the flexibility with those. So I would say in some ways the biggest hardship we're saying that this lot is that we have the opportunity to offer affordable housing or reasonably priced workforce housing for folks, or we don't.
Any further comments, thoughts, questions from the board? Okay. Do I have a motion?
This is Paul. A motion to approve the request for the variance.
Is there a second? I'll second. Going to go to a vote. Mr. Carter?
I'm still struggling with it. Why don't you go to somebody else to vote?
Ms. Gotzi?
No.
Mr. Newman?
No.
Mr. Wazinski?
Yes.
Mr. Webb?
I'm struggling with it too. I'm going to have to say no as well.
Okay. Mr. Bacta says yes. Motion fails. The variance is not approved.
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you for your time. Yeah, it's disappointing. It's I don't know if I get to say anything, but it's disappointing to see. Especially as someone who fights and works and chairs the Affordable Housing Committee in town, when minor issues like this come up and we don't have the ability within our city's processes to entertain them properly, then that's really disappointing. This is a solution. Affordable housing is something that takes all of us bending a little bit on, and it's disappointing to see when folks are not able to do that.
Mr. Hurley, can the petitioner come back with any other changes to resubmit any different way?
Typically, when there's been a denial, you have to wait 1 year unless it's like something substantially different with this. And obviously, a use variance wouldn't be an allowance. Of course, city council is always the one that sets legislative action and can always be the one that changes, like they did last time. They changed the rules from 5,000 to 4,000. Would apply uniformly to all zoning districts. So that might be, that's what happened this last time about 4 years ago. So, but yes, it'd be about a year, Mr. Bialik. Unless there's substantial change, different type of application, if it was like a lot width or something else.
Thank you, sir. On our next agenda item is the petitioner Chris Hart of Green River LLC on behalf of property owner Asheville Urban Infill 2019 Qualified Opportunity Zone Business LLC is requesting a variance to the development standard found in section 7-8.6 F5 setback standards of the UDO.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a different variance request. This is actually a setback reduction. These parcels are zoned RM8, so they're residential multifamily. They're located actually just here east of downtown. The application is basically between South Charlotte Street and Huntington Street, and the proposed lots would be addressed off Huntington Street based on some preliminary site plans provided to us for these single family homes. Let me move through the next slide, please, Jason. Next slide, Jason, thanks. And so it's two lots that are actually, am I muted here? No. Okay, thanks, Jason. It's actually two lots, and they were platted pre-zoning regulations for the city of Asheville, and then subsequently kind of truncated off to the west by the widening of South Charlotte Street. And so we did notify everybody within 200 feet of these properties, and actually the property owner actually owns a little tail to the northeast that we notified off of that too, just to kind of be doubly safe. And so here is the contour line. Again, these properties kind of uphill is Huntington Street, and then they fall northwestwardly towards South Charlotte. Jason, will you back up a slide? I'm sorry I said that. I just couldn't hear it, and my computer was slow. So CBD is to the northwest. That is the county property behind City Hall and the jail complex to the southeast of that. And this neighborhood right in here is zoned RM8. And probably as part of orientation, there to the southwest or lower left corner, you'll see an RM8CZ. There's a conditional zoning area for some new homes that reduced setbacks and lot area that City Council had approved. And that's going to come up later in the presentation by the applicant. All right, Jason, thank you. Next slide, please, or go a couple. The applicant did provide us this survey. The lots are approximately, one is about 3,000 square feet. The other is about 3,700 square feet. Again, RM8, the minimum lot area is 4,000 square feet for each lot. But these are not lots that were created. These lots are kind of what is left over by state action. So they're considered legal. I don't think we have quite got there yet, but I would make the assumption of legal non-conforming due to lot area. They do have the adequate road frontage, though, as far as abutting city street. Next slide, please, Jason. And then this is the applicant's, I guess, a early site sketch plan on these. And they do show parking that would be off street. I did do a kind of a preliminary look at these. The driveway would meet zoning standards as far as 18-foot maximum width. So that appears to meet, I'm not going to say I'm giving you approval, Mr. Hart, but it does, to appear on first glance, it appears it would meet our standards. The lot on the left, lot 20, the lower lot here, there is a little bit of an encroachment in the front corner, and this shows a 15-foot. Is this 15-foot here, Mr. Hart? These are the 15-foot. You're applying the setbacks, correct?
Yes. So the ones rendered in that site plan that's on the screen right now in Exhibit 2, that does show 15-foot front and rear setbacks, which is what the current zoning requires. However, you can see the footprints of the houses overlap with that, and we'll get into that.
Okay. All right, thank you. So then, of course, lot number 21, the northern lot is pretty much impacted. The house is impacted. Next slide, please. And then this is looking south along South Charlotte Street, the sidewalk, and then you see the neighborhood at Vance Crescent, I believe that was, or excuse me, Vance Place. That mentions RM8CZ there in the distance. Next slide. And I'll let Mr. Harp go through these. Jason, will you back up a couple slides to the, there you go. I just want to make sure that the board knew too that we kind of said in the report, front as being Huntington and rear being South Charlotte. These are actually what we consider a double front lot or a through lot. So there's some encroachments or allowed in Article 10 that a lot of people are familiar with if you're in design or building community about, the deck on a rear can be 6 feet off your side or rear property line, or accessory structures can be 6 feet off the side or rear. Well, in this case, they don't actually have a rear yard. They don't have a rear setback. They have 2 fronts. And so a deck that would likely come off a main living level that's facing Huntington is going to be 10 or 12 feet in the air on the back or Charlotte Street side of that. That deck will not be able to take advantage of a 6-foot rear setback. It will have to meet the full 15. So as Mr. Harp shows here, the purple line is the house footprint. That's the 15. Any deck coming off the house of lot 20 is going to have to meet the full 15, and any stairways or anything like that. So that's something else to keep in mind as you deliberate on the facts of the case, is to keep in mind that these are double frontage lots, and that the encroachment allowances that are just straight up allowed and available by the applicant for in Article 10 are not available in many cases. Is there any questions so far about the case before I let Mr. Harp kind of go through what they've done to point to date on this one? Okay, Mr. Harp, I'll let you give a few facts. I'll didn't want to make the case for you or do your case for you, but I'll let you go through and I'll be muted and I'll be available for any information.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hurley, and that was a brilliant introduction. I appreciate you bringing everyone up to speed, and thank you for everyone who's here in the meeting as well, Board of Adjustments, the city staff, and any community members as well. If you guys are here in this meeting, you guys clearly care about the prosperity of our city and our community here, and I want to commend you guys for that and thank you. You guys are here to make Asheville a better place, and that's awesome. So thank you. Anyway, so to make the case, I understand, you guys have 4 requirements that you like to see, each case meets. And so I'll go through those, essentially as kind of the outline of the talking points. But, number 1, I guess, Jason, if you could go to slide back to exhibit 1, rather, I believe it is. Now, this is the survey of these 2 lots, which again, like Mr. Hurley, referenced their existing non-conforming. So these were originally subdivided as a part of Hazard Heights. That was the name of the plat back in 1910, so well over 110 years ago. At the time, South Charlotte Street, or Charlotte Street in general, didn't kind of extend through here. I believe it was Eagle Street that these actually backed up to. But at any rate, over the course of time, these lots have been slowly kind of chewed away with the eminent domain from, the widening of South Charlotte Street after it became South Charlotte Street. And there was also a right-of-way as well, which I believe was at the time called Fairview Street, which creates this, kind of now abandoned right-of-way that wraps around as well. But I guess the hardship that I'd like to point out is that, these lots have been chewed away by eminent domain, and also just it seems when South Charlotte Street was widened, if you reference the survey there on Exhibit 1, you can see, I tried to circle it there in red so everybody can see it rather clearly, but, you see South Charlotte Street on the survey, and then you've got the sidewalk that kind of comes, off the street as well, also on this side of the road. And the same side as these lots. And you can see the distance between, the edge of the sidewalk in the beginning of this property line for these lots is it's like 17.9 feet, almost 18 feet. So I think the strict application of the zoning ordinance with the 15-foot setback, I think it sets an unnecessary hardship to these lots because, there's such a large gap between what I would consider the reason, incorrectly or maybe incorrectly, what I would consider is the reasonable right-of-way, with the sidewalk and the street. There's already a very significant space there between that and where the property line starts. And so, our intent with these lots is to build homes that, will be useful to the citizens of Asheville for generations to come. With modern construction, these days, buildings that we build really last quite a long time. And so we'd like to try to get, these right from the outset and kind of maximize their usefulness for the citizens of Asheville for, many, many years. And we think a very slight, variance, maybe a less strict interpretation of the zoning ordinance here would allow really a dramatic difference in what we're able to build on these lots and their usefulness to the community through their life. And let's see here. So that's kind of the key point I'd like to make is that the right of way is rather excessive from South Charlotte Street, and if we could perhaps use some of that as kind of the buffer, because that's the spirit of the zoning, right, is to maintain an ample and safe buffer between the public rights of way, the property, the house itself. And I think we can still maintain the spirit, the original intent of the zoning, without strictly adhering to the zoning rules and regulations here. The other thing is that I think it may be in the best interest of the community and also these, just from the useful perspective of these houses to kind of fit in with the surrounding houses in the area. And so as we advance in the slide deck, I think if we start going to some of the pictures, actually, let's go to exhibit 3 perhaps. Yeah, so this thank you. So this will show, as you see here in the picture, on the left side of the picture, you can actually see we went ahead and staked out, that part of the boundary for those lots. So on the left side of the picture here, that's actually these lots, and these pink stakes you see, it's actually the property line. So we did that to try to, show the board and the public here that there is significant space kind of between the right of way along South Charlotte and where the property line, not even where the houses would start, but the property line itself. So the houses would be situated another 10 feet behind those. Additionally, if we advance another slide in the deck here, this is right across the streets of Hazard Streets, and we'd like to try to fit in with kind of the neighborhood as well. These houses kind of confronted a similar hardship, it seems. They're in a similar orientation, have road frontage around South Charlotte, and they also have the kind of dual road frontage dynamic with they come off of Vance Place Drive. Ours are going to be off of Huntington and then South Charlotte. So it's a very similar dynamic. And they actually were granted a conditional zoning, like Mr. Hurley mentioned, from City Council to indeed reduce their setbacks very similarly to 10 feet, both the front and the rear. And Mr. Hurley rightfully corrected me that it's actually both the front setbacks. So front setbacks for these, as they do have dual road frontage, were reduced. And you can see here kind of in the picture that although it was reduced, I think the spirit of the zoning was still maintained, because as you can see, there's the sidewalk, there's South Charlotte Street, and then there's quite, significant space between the property lines for these houses are approximately where the black fence that you see is. It's not exactly there, but that's about where it is. And clearly there's ample space, between the right of way and where the property line starts there. And then the houses themselves are quite a ways, from the right of way. So that's kind of talking through those exhibits. If we advance further to perhaps exhibit 5, please. Thank you. That's just more, another one of the houses off Vance Place Drive. And you can see it even has a lesser setback potentially even off of Hazard Street there. I don't know that as a fact, though. I haven't measured it. But advancing further, perhaps to exhibit 6, please. kind of another picture of those same houses there. And then again, just Exhibit 7, please. So these next couple of slides are actually other houses off of Huntington and Tuskegee Street. These are the direct neighbors to these lots, right there. Not off South Charlotte, obviously, but these are off of the kind of that back road that they would have dual frontage with. So these are some of the neighbors, on those streets. And as you can see, they're very, very close to the road there as well. If we can continue on to Exhibit 8, please. I forget which house this is. I believe it's 22 Tuskegee, but this one, as you can see, has, maybe a 5-foot setback, if not less, with the porch there. I mean, it's very, very small, almost a 0 setback. And again, these houses were, many of them on the street were built long ago, kind of around the time, this plat was, the subdivision was created with this plat, maybe in the early 1900s. Advancing on to Exhibit 9, please. This is another house right across the street from that one, I believe, 15 Tuskegee. And again, minimal setbacks here. And I think, to try to fit in with the neighborhood and also to maintain the spirit of the zoning, I think, both of these can be accomplished along with maximizing the usefulness, of these houses for generations to come for the citizens of Asheville. I think all this can be accomplished with without, strictly adhering to the zoning variance or the zoning code rather. I think that's all of the exhibits, if I'm not mistaken. And there's another house. This one's off of Huntington, again, with kind of a minimal setback. But that's most of what I believe I have to say about these. Thank you guys so much for your time and hearing this case. Again, really appreciate your dedication to the city and all that you guys do. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions for the petitioner or Mr. Hurley? Nope. Okay, I'll close that part of the comment section. Do we have any public input?
I do see that we have one caller on the line. If you are wishing to speak, please hit *3 right now. Okay, it looks like they're just listening on that line and don't wish to speak. So I think we don't have any.
Okay, I'm going to close public comments. I'm going to open it up for discussion. Thoughts?
I have a couple of questions. So, Mr. Hurley, is there a section in the ordinance that says you can take an average of the existing front setbacks to create your own front setbacks? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, ma'am. There is a section, and I believe that's also in Article 10. And we did approach that one first before we recommended a variance. The thing is, in one case, there's not any houses on that side of the street because the houses that are on Huntington and Tuskegee are most of them are on the inside of the loop.
Okay.
And then the lots that are pretty much beside to the east, southeast of these lots, they all abut Hazard and they're vacant. They're all small lots. And then it wraps around to the east, northeast, and those are all vacant.
Okay.
There was nothing really within 200 feet to average for that. But yes, we did explore that. Yes, ma'am.
That would have been such a great way to go. Okay. There are some tools in that toolbox that I just want to make sure we've explored. So correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't actually have two site plans. We have two theoretical site plans with two theoretical footprints. We don't have, what I'd like to know from the applicant for lot 21, I see where it is the tightest, and that's probably somewhere around 12 feet in depth. But if you had a footprint that you could fit on there, you've got a building square footage of 643 square feet, which would be a 25 by 25 and some change for a building footprint. I didn't know if you had explored, smaller footprints, since you're going to stack these units down the slope if you're going to be constructing them by the same methodology as the pictures that you showed. Do you want to speak to that?
No, certainly. Thank you. And that's a great point. And we did investigate quite a few different, building footprints and different, house designs for these lots. Really what we get into and the real impetus for requesting this variance is parking. So even with the smaller footprint, as you can see kind of on the site plan that's on the screen right now, to orient the houses, the lots are kind of in a funny shape. And so as you orient the houses, if you're going to have parking on site as well, which I think you kind of need to, this Tuskegee and Huntington are one-way street. There's really no parking on those streets. And of course, we all know South Charlotte, not really any parking there. And not to disturb, the beautiful roadside of South Charlotte with any, parking or anything like that. I think it's best to perhaps orient the parking off of Huntington Street here, and we'd like to do, offsite with just the driveways we show kind of in that preliminary site plan. And in order for us to kind of have that in there, as you can see on there, the northeast corners of each of the building, the potential building footprints, that's where they start to sit outside of the setback. And so if we're able to push those back a little bit and reduce the setback and on both sides, really, we're able to accomplish that. But just the way the lots are angled, it makes it kind of tricky to also allow the on-site parking as well with really any kind of footprint. And again, we, our intent with these lots is to really capture the highest and best use, for the citizens of Asheville. Right now I'm in a house that was built in, 1910, and it's quite old. And construction is quite different now than it was then, and things are, much more quality and they last a lot longer. So I can't imagine how long these houses are going to last. And if we're going to build houses that are going to be there serving, the citizens of Asheville for potentially 200 years, I'd really try to maximize the usefulness for, the occupants and the end users of these houses. And we just found as we go through these different floor plans that it seems like a slight reduction, at first glance, but it really makes a dramatic impact on what we can build there, and how useful it'll be for the end user.
So these aren't going to have garages. You're envisioning just street parking. I mean, driveway parking.
That's right.
And so, Mr. Hurley, as these are configured with these driveways, is that what you were alluding to about whether these driveways would be permitted as shown? I thought that you couldn't show any cars parked inside of a right-of-way.
Well, the maximum driveway width is 18 foot for an apron. I haven't done an apron review. I don't do the apron review, but you cannot create a parking lot or a parking area within the front setback. Now you can park within the driveway. So you pull in, that's an 18-foot wide driveway, you pull in perpendicular, and that's about enough room for two cars to be side by side. And that's pretty much it. Like you can't come in and turn to the right and pave and kind of parallel the curb. So this sort of orientation that they come straight in, and that's 18 foot. And I'm getting a message too that enough to pull in fully. So the tail end of the car should not be hanging out in the right of way. Ideally not in the right of way at all, but definitely not hanging out into the street. So, it looks plausible. I don't know if a Ford Expedition get off the road, but it looks like that the general layout doesn't flag up. Now I haven't shown the apron for 20. That apron, the arc of that, or that arc would be probably wider than 18, so that might be a little bit of a problem. But
no, you could.
But that's what I'm getting. It's just a straight in. I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
Yeah, no. You answered my question, and it makes complete sense. So the last question I had was: are we granting variance for each one of these, or is it a joint application where we could approve, like if you approve one, you're approving the other one?
Well, it was a joint application. Eric, do you think that they could always condition the variance, right, Eric? If I'm correct, and Eric, correct me, you don't have to approve both fronts. You could approve one front, right? Or what do you think, Eric?
You could split them up and treat them separately. I just checked, and they are separate PIN numbers. So the way that this would happen if it's granted is the order would specify each PIN number, and we would do it in one order. If you find one property problematic for any reason, we can split them up. So we've got flexibility, but they are two separate PIN numbers.
Thank you. So my last point would be, when I'm taking a look at these, it looks like lot 20, you could build a nice sized footprint home and with some creative configuration, get a driveway on there and meet everything. Lot 21 is a lot more problematic. And one of the things that I don't think the applicant even pointed out was that, or maybe if he did, I wasn't really clear on it, but you've got this really odd right of way that just continues on through and doesn't curve with the road. And had it actually curved with the road instead of not jutting straight to the northeast, you'd have more land and potentially not even need a front variance. So I think that is a constraint that's unique to this piece of property, not to argue his own case, but it's just something that I'm seeing that really ties in more to lot 21 versus lot 20. And so that's all I wanted to mention. And I'll be quiet now.
Now, is the petitioner asking for two separate variances on this petition request, or is the petitioner just asking for one request for both properties?
Thank you. Good question. No, we'd like a variance for both. It's an application for both lot 20 and 21. We feel, there's that unnecessary hardship again for both that, although it is possible to construct a residence on lot 20, it just becomes very difficult with the parking. And we think, it quite easily, we could maintain the spirit of the zoning ordinance, which is to have ample spacing, between the right of way and other houses and other structures. We think it's very easy to maintain the spirit of that without strictly adhering to it. And additionally, we think it's in the best interest of the community at large to have these houses kind of be uniform and look good and feel like they kind of, mesh together. And if their setbacks, vary significantly, not only with the one right next door on lot 21, but with other houses on the street and other houses across Hazard Street on Vance Place, it could perhaps seem kind of out of place. And again, just, we've applied for both, and again, in the spirit to try to really make the highest and best use out of these lots. If we're going to, take the resources and cut down some of the trees on these lots to build homes, we'd really like to make sure that they provide the maximum, usefulness to the citizens of Asheville. It would really pain us to try to, create a smaller than needed structure just to try to, strictly adhere to the zoning ordinance when we believe the spirit of the ordinance could easily be met, just because such a gracious right of way from South Charlotte.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments?
I'll just say I agree. I ain't gonna agree with nobody. I'm just gonna say, just for remember that these are double front lots. They're through lots, and we have 2 front setbacks on each property. And outside that fact, I have nothing else to say.
Okay. I'm seeking a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Hurley does.
Okay. Additional comments?
Yeah, I apologize. Just wanted to quickly tack on to what Mr. Hurley said. He brought up a good point that because these lots also have the dual road frontage, you know, if we're going to have any kind of useful outdoor space for these lots and get parking on site, yeah, I think it would be paramount to have the variance for both. It would be very difficult to have any kind of porches or decks or anything, you know, going into any kind of setback on either of these. So it makes it kind of quite important for both lots.
All right. Looking for a motion.
Yeah, this is Paul. Move to approve the request for the variance.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Okay. Any further discussions? No? We'll go to the vote. Mr. Wazinski?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
No.
Ms. Godsey?
No.
Mr. Carter?
No.
Mr. Bokdas is aye, yes. Unfortunately, the motion fails. 4 votes are needed for the variance request. Mr. Hurley, would you like to comment on what next process Mr. Harp can look at?
Well, me and Mr. Harp can get together about, we can evaluate flexes and or footprint designs. I think maybe let's look at number 20, especially with flex. And then we can talk about any additional outdoor living area, where it'd be a patio might be an option too. So if you'd like to shoot me an email later this evening or tomorrow, we can catch up about next steps.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Hurley. And thank you to the board for hearing this case. If I may ask, just I would, if I could just know why the members that said no voted no. I'd greatly appreciate that. If not, I understand. But thank you guys either way for your time.
If you had broken them up, I would have voted for lot 21 for variance, because I do think it has some hardships. But as it stands, no. I'll throw out another thing that maybe you and Mr. Hurley could talk about, is potentially recombining this land to give lot 21 a little bit more frontage area. That might help you out a little bit as well. I don't know, something to consider.
Thanks. Anybody else?
This is Bill. On the lot, the small lot right there, where it's, to me, it was too tight for your lot, what you're trying to put there. If you, I think it's lot 20, which was the bigger lot, I would have voted for that one. But the 21, I did not like that. One other thing that I thought of also, when DOT came through and bought that, they probably paid the previous property owner dollars for getting that land from them. And at the same time, that property owner should have gone back to DOT and basically had those lots, basically should become part of DOT, because they made them too small to meet the requirements right there. The other thing I could see right there that you could possibly do is just combine the 2 lots together and make them into one lot for development right there. Sometimes lots are too small to develop, and I feel like that's what you got right there.
Sure. Thank you guys very much.
Mine was the same as the very first option that you had the hardship. I still had to struggle with the hardship, just like the first case. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all your input, and we will move on to the latter part of our agenda, and that is nominations and vote for chair and vice chair.
Yeah, this is Paul. Considering the quite admirable job Mr. Bokdat has done on this meeting, I'd like to propose that he become the chair.
there a
I'll second
second?
I would second that. I'd third that.
Any comments, thoughts? No? Okay, we'll take it to a vote. Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Godsey,
Yes.
Mr. Newman,
Yes.
and Mr. Wazinski.
Yes.
Okay, I will abstain. So you have 4 votes to 0. Thank you, guys.
Can we
do
get
we
a
get to-
I'm sorry, Mr.
I'm sorry.
Bobka. Do we get a vice chair? You want to see somebody wants to be a vice
That's
chair?
what I was going to next.
All right, sorry, I thought we was wrapping up. Sorry.
No. As a chair, I'd like to nominate Mr. Wazinski. He's done a pretty admirable job as well. Not to mention Mr. Newman has well. I
don't think I can serve. Being
What's that?
a member of the county, I cannot serve on as a chair or vice chair. Is that not correct, Mr. Hurley? I know I can't be a chair, so I'd rather not be the vice chair either.
Okay. So I nominate Mr. Wazinski to be a vice chair.
I'll second.
Thank you. Let me just say before you vote that I very much appreciate that nomination, and I just want to point out that because of health reasons and age, I'm not as old as I look, but I'm not sure how comfortable I'm going to be coming back to live meetings anytime real soon. So I just put that out.
Yeah, that's a good question. Does the city have a live date when we think that we'll go back, Mr. Hurley?
I haven't heard of a live date. Me and Beth can check in on that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's maybe the summertime at this point. I mean, the vaccine rollout is not moving as fast as we had all hoped, and it's taking some time. So, it's going to be interesting to see how the public is really. A lot of public's very happy with this public call-in input and be able to watch the meetings live. I think the greater availability to access these meetings and to not actually get off work and to interact. I think we're going to have to find a balance, because I think the public's going to demand that continue to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Paul, to that request, if it comes a time where you need to step down, we will understand. But right now, I think we're fortunate to have you, and I'm going to take it to a vote. So, Mr. Carter.
I think it makes complete sense. So yes.
Okay. Ms. Godsey.
Yes.
Mr. Newman.
Aye.
I'll say aye as well. Mr. Wazinski.
I will abstain.
Okay. 4 votes, 1 abstain.
And I was going to say, Mr. Bobka, thank you. We appreciate Mr. Harden. I didn't get a chance to speak earlier. We had some stuff going on in the background, but his term, he'd served 2 terms, and so he'll have to wait. I think it's at least a 3-year period, correct, Eric, before he could be reappointed or be eligible to be reappointed if he so desired. And so as part of that, we have Mr. Webb, who was appointed. I didn't say that, but he got appointed to fill the position that was vacated suddenly last year, unexpectedly, with a passing. And then as part of that, Mr. Angelus, David Angelus, you can wave here, David. This is his first meeting as an official alternate. He's been waiting in the wings to actually listen in on a meeting, so he's been kind of very excited. And David, I'll let you tell him a little bit of your background real quickly, but I also recognize Miss Suzanne Godsey. She got appointed as of January because of Mr. Harden rolling off, term expiring. So now Miss Godsey is now a full-time regular member. So welcome and congratulations to all y'all. So Mr. Angelus, would you give him real quickly your background so everybody knows?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Dave Angelus. Look forward to working with you all. I actually have a master's degree in urban planning and policy, but spent my 35-year career at JP Morgan, the bank, as an operations executive. So as I'm kind of winding down, I wanted to give back to the city and go back to my roots. And I was fortunate to be accepted onto your committee.
Thank you. Welcome aboard, guys. This is our new board, and look forward to working with you guys. Every month, if you got any questions or whatnot, we're all, everybody's here doing the same thing. I'm not a good speech giver, so with that, we'll adjourn unless we have anything else.
I was going to let you know our new council representative liaison is Mrs. Sandra Kilgore.
Okay.
So she is now our council representative. So I realized in the meeting that I didn't invite her to this meeting, but I think she'll be probably joining or at least following with us a little bit more involved moving forward. So you may see her in our meetings moving forward. So just want to make sure y'all knew about our new council liaison.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. The more involvement we have with the council, the better. So instead of voting for a motion, I'm going to go with the no objection motion. If there are no objections, we will adjourn. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank y'all.
Bye.